And we are back here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Just about a week ago, we were recording, and it's been a while since we've been back here on the show, but we are back live with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am, of course, one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. Andrew, as I mentioned, it's been a week since we've been back here on the show. Obviously, last week was WrestleMania. We took a week off just to kind of recuperate from our WrestleMania week, as well as, kind of dive in and soaked in what was going on that weekend as well. Obviously, the Final Four, the National Championship, was the same week as WrestleMania. Then you have WrestleMania itself. And then, just as of yesterday, in the National Basketball Association, we now know the 10 teams for each conference that will be making this year's NBA playoff/play-in. So now we know the seeding matches for this year's NBA playoffs. And now we have something else to look forward to talking about here today on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to talking about this. Like you said, it's a really good time last week with WrestleMania, the NCAA Championship, and Final Four. Now we have NBA playoffs, which I think, and you could disagree with this statement, they are the best playoffs in the major four North American sports. I think it is the
I would
best.
say it's up there. I also enjoy the NHL playoffs a lot. I think the intensity of those games are insane, and keep in mind the NHL playoffs are coming around the corner as well. So I would say NBA and NHL pretty much
You can
intensity
say they're neck
wise.
and neck,
Yeah,
but
intensity wise, I would say like those are the top
and
two.
obviously the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl, but that's one
Yeah,
game. It's not like the entirety of the NFL playoffs. There are moments where it's kind of lackluster and not that entertaining. There are a lot of games like that. Where the NBA playoffs, like every game feels like it matters.
right. Yeah, when we witnessed it firsthand, we went to a couple of Knicks playoff games last season, so we know for sure that is definitely the case. And hopefully, we'll see what happens this year with the Knicks. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in the show. But like I said last week, obviously, with us taking the week off, we didn't really get to recap what happened in the past week's Final Four, and then the national championship game itself. So we'll do a quick synopsis. Everyone pretty much by now knows what happened last week with that Final Four, the national championship game was. So we'll do a quick recap of what happened in the Final Four. We saw Purdue ending the Cinderella run of NC State advancing to the national championship game with their win over the Wolfpack. And they would take on the UConn Huskies in the national championship game, as UConn was just a little bit too much for Alabama. They would advance their second straight national championship game, and they would defeat Purdue in that national championship game, winning back-to-back national titles. They are the first team in 17 years to accomplish that feat. So valiant effort from Purdue at the end of the day, getting to this feat after really a embarrassing loss last year in the NCAA tournament. But UConn has just been proven, and we kind of knew this from all along, Johnson, going into the season, that UConn is just a very formidable team. Not a lot of teams, had great success against them this season, and they win their second straight national championship, and who knows, they could be in line for a three-peat next year.
So I will say this: UConn has cemented its place as the top basketball program in the last 25 years. I would say now Kentucky, UCLA. I think they've surpassed the legacies of Kentucky, North Carolina, and Duke by far. Uh, Listen, it sounds crazy, but hear me out for a second here. Kentucky has 8 national championships, and nothing against Adolph Rupp. Nothing against Rupp Arena, nothing against the historical titles he brought to Kentucky in the infancy of NCAA. But the NCAA tournament wasn't even the premier tournament when he was winning those. It was the NIT.
Right.
So if you want to talk about modern tournament and you want to talk about from 1985 onwards, Kentucky has 3 national championships. North Carolina has 4 or 5, depending on it's 1982, so that's kind of still in its infancy, right? So they have 5. Duke has 5. Can't even talk to me about Indiana with Bobby Knight. Now I realize Bobby Knight has a couple in the 70s and 80s. That's whatever. Kansas, they've got 2, or they've got 3 since the national championships. And then Louisville, they've got a couple. Villanova's got a couple, but even UCLA. Oh, you want to talk about Kareem? Again, NIT was the premier tournament back in the day. If we really want to get into it, UCLA has won national championship in the last 40 years. That was in 1995. So if you want to talk about being a blue blood, like an actual blue blood, you have to consider UConn. When a non-blue blood school has surpassed pretty much every other blue blood, does that even have meaning anymore? Feel free to answer that, Nick.
No, I didn't know if you were continuing the sentence or not. I was gonna say, I mean, you look at what UConn's done in the last 25 years, and I think they have what, six national championships in the
They
last
have six
25?
since 1999.
Six since
So
nineteen
if
yeah.
you're a UConn fan that was born, pretty much if you were a UConn fan that's been born anytime between the years 1980 to present, you've seen a national championship. You could have
Right.
been a UConn fan that was born in 2015, and you've seen two national championships.
And they've done it with a lot of, nameless, endless amount of talent around them. Obviously, this by far probably could have been a lot of people saying their best team they've ever assembled. I mean, you look at some of the guys they had on the roster this year, and that's saying something considering what they've had in that 25-year span. Guys like Kemba Walker come to mind. They had I'm trying to think of who was the point guard they had for the last national championship run.
Shabazz Napier.
Shabazz Napier, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to think of that. Obviously, didn't have the greatest NBA career, but monster NCAA tournament run he had for UConn. Obviously, Ray
And this is
Allen,
what I want to say
all these
about
other players,
the
Sheed
Big
the
East
Beat.
too. So the Big East, if you don't even count the vacated championship by Louisville, and by the way, it happened. It's not like you can take championships away, just like Heisman trophies. You could take them away on paper, but banners last forever, championships last forever.
Yeah,
That
give Reggie Bush's
tattoo,
Heisman back.
yeah, that tattoo in the back of Rick Pitino, that's gonna last forever until he dies too. If you take that away, they've got 10 national championships going back to 1984. So you're saying in a 40-year span now, they have 10 national championships. And if you want to include the one from Louisville, that's 11.
Yeah,
That's more than the Big 10. That's more than the Big 12. It's just as many as the SEC. And it's only a few less than the Pac 12 and the ACC when they're running up the score, in prehistoric times now. And this is going to be even more controversial. I'm going to claim UConn's championship from 2014 when they're in the American because that was a Big East team.
they might as well
That
have been. Yeah,
that was the first year's the American, and this conference, this alignment didn't happen until late in the year. They already had the recruiting classes done, so before all intents and purposes, that was a Big East roster under Big East recruits with Big East head coaching and facilities, and they just happened to be in the American that year because they broke off at the very very end of the year because this was no one saw this coming. So I would count that as two, but on paper you can't. But if you do count that, that's a dozen. 11 with the vacated title by Louisville. And I've been kind of beating this drum all year. Big Ten, best conference there is, right? Big Ten. We only hear Big Ten basketball. The last Big Ten national championship is about 8 months away from getting discounts in their car insurance now. So that you have to consider that. Where the
what
Big
was
Ten has been Michigan State and Friends for the last 25 years.
was it? I was gonna say, was it Michigan
2000.
State
Yeah.
that was their last national championship?
Yeah. The SEC, that's going
Oh
to enter high school next year. That very last national championship. The Pac 12 conference, they're going to be turning 30 soon. So you
yeah,
want to talk about these other major conferences that, oh, they're so much better, yada, yada, yada. And again, I give the Big 12 flack, but again, they only have 3 championships in their entire existence. UConn has double that in the
yeah.
last 25 years. But um, I'm going to stop with my rant right now because I think we're getting a little bit too off topic. I want to talk more about NBA basketball. This is just me taking a victory lap right
Well,
now.
before we go into the NBA talk, we'll do two more topics I want to get into as well. There's also some coaching news that happened this past week in the NCAA. Before we get into that, the question I have for you is: do you think they go for a three-peat next year? Do you think that it's possible?
No, I don't. I don't. I don't.
You don't think
I
so?
think. I think pigs will fly before that happens, and that's nothing to do against UConn. It's unheard of.
Okay.
You're. I said back. I said beginning of the year back to back was going to be extremely tough. Three-peat in college athletics in this day and
It's
age with the
yeah,
NIL and the instability. If this was 2010, 2011, I could see. I could see it happening because you have that in place, but they're mercenaries now. I don't know without a better word to put it. They're free agents every year. Like Rick Pitino says, you're dealing with professionals now. They want to get paid and they'll move on to the next team within a year or two.
Now, as I mentioned, we were in WrestleMania in Philadelphia last week while the Final Four of the national championship games were going on. National championship, obviously, the day after WrestleMania Sunday. But on WrestleMania Sunday, on the right back from Philadelphia, we had heard some rumors about a certain Kentucky head coach that may or may not have been leaving his team. And The news did not break until the day after the national championship game because he didn't want the news to overtake the aspect of that national championship
I doubt
game.
it, but
Eh, yeah, give or take, no matter how you look about it. But a big change in the SEC going back to the conference you mentioned just a couple minutes ago. We had talked about this when Kentucky had lost to Oakland in the first round of what does this mean now for the Wildcats and where do they go now from here with John Calipari. But obviously we talked about it. They can't really fire him because he got a $30 million buyout. It's going to take a lot of money to get rid of him. They won't have to worry about that because John Calipari has left the Kentucky Wildcats and has been named the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. So he's staying in the SEC. Now goes to Arkansas, become the new head coach of the Razorbacks, and certainly one I did not expect to see this past week. I think it was a big shock. I mean, you kind of knew Calipari's days in Kentucky were running out, but I don't think anyone expected him to leave Kentucky for Arkansas, and now he'll get that matchup with Kentucky for a couple times in the regular season next year.
yeah, I had said this back in 2019 that John Calipari was on the hot seat. Um, Listen, at the end of the day, his style of basketball does not work. And did you hear the story of Oscar Sheboy?
No, I did not.
Oh boy! So the reason why he kind of lost eligibility, not him particularly, but the reason why Cal kind of fell out of a favorability in Kentucky is one of their boosters, and I think their biggest booster, I forget their name, stopped actually actively donating to him because they were running for public office and they wanted to kind of like parade like Oscar Sheboy around, like, oh yeah, Oscar endorses me, whatever. And Cal came kind of stepped in and protected him, said, hey, you can't do that. So they
Okay.
got a little pissed off at him, and that kind of severed the relationship there. And that was just kind of it. I mean, it was kind of like, dead man walking after that point, and Cal did the right thing. He didn't do the wrong thing. He kind of protected his players. That's what he's always done. He's always been player first kind of coach.
Yeah.
Even though he's not the greatest X's and O's coach, I'd say the exact opposite, but he's always taking care of his players. And once that relationship was kind of severed a couple of years ago, he was just kind of dead man walking. And now, if you don't know anything about the Arkansas boosters, they are fully committed to helping him out.
Yeah.
It's just kind of insane. I think it's actually the Tyson, Tyson chicken nuggets and Tyson chicken. That's one of their number one boosters.
Oh, okay.
So John Tyson is fully behind this hire, and he's going to give him a lot of money. Their facilities are already great. They're in a great conference. They have a rich history. I would say even a richer history than Kentucky basketball when it comes to winning national championships in recent times, especially with those 40 minutes from hell teams with Nolan Richardson. But Cal's going to have a great shot to at least compete for a national championship. He's not going to win one there, but he'll at least compete there in his last couple of years as a head coach. He'll probably retire there.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly was. Give or take how you look about it, it was certainly shocking news, and it left Kentucky now with the option of where do they go now from here at head coach. You know, they were looking at guys like Danny Hurley. When obviously after UConn won the back-to-back national championships, they were looking at Scott Drew from Baylor, and they just kept it just kept like seeming as if they couldn't get their top options they wanted to be their next head coach, and they ended up ultimately falling on BYU head coach Mark Pope, who, if you remember, was on that Rick Pitino national championship team when Rick Pitino was the head coach of Kentucky. So Mark Pope now the new head coach of the Wildcats. Big shoes to fill, obviously. Taking over the job for Calipari after he left, and now goes back to a university that he obviously knows what it takes to win a national championship as a player. Now he'll have to try to see if he can do it in the SEC as a head coach.
Going to be an exciting time there in Kentucky. Already trying to start a home and home against the Red Storm this upcoming
Yeah,
year,
I'm looking forward to
and
that.
I would be looking. Last time St. John's, Kentucky played, I think it was 2011. Mo Harkless was on the team.
Yes. Was that in Rupp Arena?
Yes,
Okay.
probably SEC Big East Challenge back in the day.
They need to do more of those. That'd be fun. But before we go into the NBA talk, we'll do one last thing. I'll ask you. What was your overall take from our WrestleMania trip? Obviously, it's been a week since we
Wrong
were at
person won.
WrestleMania.
The wrong people won.
uh,
Sami Zayn had an awful story, and Cody Rhodes' story was worse.
yeah, it was a rough week for you. You're some of the guys that you like, or some of the guys you don't like. Unfortunately, didn't go your way in terms
Also, Drew
of
McIntyre got done dirty once again.
yeah, but I think you and I both saw that coming.
Yeah, it was expected, especially after he
Yeah,
had the whole altercation with CM Punk. But yeah,
yeah.
I'm over it.
Yeah, I think we could both agree that it was a fun week regardless, even what the
Absolutely,
outcomes won. I mean, obviously we were in Atlantic City that week as well. You know that had some ups and downs, mostly ups for you.
pretty much all ups with me.
Yeah, yeah. And then WrestleMania itself was great overall. I mean, I enjoyed the card. The matches were great, and
Yeah, the only downside was the drive back.
the drive back, yeah, was tough. That Sunday night drive back home was a very rough one, but we got home in time for, obviously people have work the next morning because obviously with it being Sunday night, it could be worse though. Could be WrestleMania 35 drive back home because we all know
Never
that's the
again.
worst one. Yeah, that is never going to happen again. So after all that, now Johnson, let's get to our big topic at hand today, and that is obviously the NBA playoffs are now finally set for this year's NBA postseason as of yesterday. Yesterday was probably the most anticipated day of the NBA season we've had because 15 out of the 20 seeds for the NBA playoffs had not been decided going into yesterday's action. So it was a wild time to be watching as an NBA basketball fan, and everything went down in a very, exciting way, especially if you're a fan of the Knicks, like you and I are both. Obviously, an overtime game with the Chicago Bulls. That if we won the game, we get the 2 seed. If we lose the game, we get the 3 seed. So a lot went into store for that one, but thankfully our Knicks won, and they get a top 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, which we'll break down just a little bit. But looking at what we have now for this NBA, standings wise for both of these conferences, is there maybe a surprise team that either made the playoffs or play in or didn't make the playoffs that you look at for one of these conferences or maybe even both of these conferences that you say to yourself, I'm kind of surprised they are in or they're not in?
Oh, that's a great question because I think, and we can go back to this. A lot of these teams I expected to be in this conversation. I think the Pacers as a 6 seed and the Magic as a 5 seed are some of the biggest surprises to come out of this East or Western Conference.
Yeah.
Toronto blowing it up is a little bit surprising because they've been a team that's like, oh, they're not really that good on paper.
Yeah, they are in a full rebuild.
And now all of a sudden they go from perennial, let's say 3 to 6 seed for the last decade to they're not even close by the way. They won 20 something games and
They were
they're
close to
committing to a
60
complete
losses. Yeah.
they're committing to a complete rebuild. Out of a Western Conference, I think the Kings being a 9 seed surprised me. I had them kind of firmly in as like a 7 or like a 6, but to them to fall that low and they're pretty much in a do or die situation against one of the toughest teams in the league, it's not an ideal situation.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a playoff rematch they have going into the play-in
it
from
is a
last
playoff
season.
rematch, and they didn't light the beam last time against them, so God only knows what's going to happen this time around.
Right. Yeah, I had a feeling about Sacramento. I even mentioned it going into our preview of the season. I thought maybe they would regress from last year's, Cinderella run being a top 3 seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah,
And
we knew they
like,
were going to regress, but we didn't think they were going to be like almost out of the playoffs.
yeah, yeah, I thought maybe I expected them to be in the play-in. I thought maybe they'd be like the 7 seed, and obviously, looking back at it, they were only 3 games out of a 7 spot. But still, I mean, yeah, it was interesting to see them fall to where they're currently at. I mean, obviously things could change. They could win 2 games and they're still in the playoffs, but
So
they'll
this is
have
going
to
to
do it
sound
from the
crazy
nine
to
ten
me,
matchup.
but I think the Nuggets getting the 2 seed is actually better than them having the 1.
Um,
I would say 110% because we could go into the match offs and like hypotheticals later on, but
yeah,
just to stick with it, Thunder will have to play the winner of Lakers Pelicans or the loser of Lakers
they'll play the
Pelicans, right?
loser of the Lake. The play. So how it goes is the 7-8 winner. The winner of that game is the 7th seed for the Western Conference. They would play Denver, and then the winner of the Kings Warriors game will play the loser of the Pelicans Lakers game for the eighth
Yeah, so
seed.
it's a potential. They may be playing against the Warriors or the Lakers or Kings, which is that's gonna suck. Uh,
And
and
they're a young team too.
and the Nuggets, an established team, may get stuck with the Pelicans, which they could definitely handle. Then in the second round, it's like, oh yeah, you have to play the 3 seed. Your 3 seed's the Timberwolves. I think that's an
or
excellent matchup for them.
do that now. It's not like where the NFL obviously it's let's
Three
say like it's
seeds.
yeah. So they would play the 3 or the 6 in the second round, right?
Yeah, that's if they
Yeah.
play
So
a
they
Suns team, which they've
yeah,
already
Suns are not an
manhandled
easy
multiple
matchup
teams.
either.
They've only, but here's the thing: would you ever play the Suns potentially, or the winner of Clippers Mavericks? I would not
Uh,
want to play the Clippers or the Mavericks.
I wouldn't want to. I would rather play the Suns compared to those two teams.
Oh, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like the Denver, I think they kind of, they got a bit easier path to the finals right here.
Yeah, they had an interesting game with San Antonio, which got them in that spot. They had now lost that game to the
Yeah, Victor
Spurs. They would be the one.
Wembanyama really bailed them out,
They would be the one seed for sure.
and I think the Spurs might have screwed themselves out of a draft pick potentially too,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, there
because
was a
they would. I
lot.
think that if they
There was a
would
lot
have
of
been
bad
like
teams
bottom
this year.
five, and now it's they could have got potentially a top three pick, and they could fall out
Did
all
they
the way
not
out of the
finish with
top
a bottom
five now.
five record?
They did. I think
That's
they
like
finished with 22 wins, right?
oh my god, that's like the
But
fifth. That's literally the fifth worst record.
yeah, but if it had lost, they would have had Trailblazers and Hornets ahead of them.
Yeah,
So that's why it's
that's
kind
true.
of big
Yeah.
like that. It's not really that great.
Well, you never know. The draft lottery, those odds makers,
Always
obviously.
funny.
Remember what happened with Wembanyama last year? People didn't want the Spurs to get the pick, and they got the pick.
Oh, but we knew that was happening.
Yeah,
That
we all
was
knew it
like
was going to happen.
it was written in the stars.
Yeah. So let's look now at these matches that we currently have slated for the NBA playoffs and what, we'll preview what we think of what's going to go on. So obviously in the Eastern Conference, and Johnson, I'll ask you, do you want me to go into the play-in matches first or do you want me to go into the actual playoff matchups itself?
I think we should start with the plane, and then we can
Go
work
and then
that
work
way
our way
into
up.
a playoffs
Okay.
because the way it works, obviously, it's the winners of the game will like take on the 7th seed or the eighth
Yeah.
seed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. So here's for example. So tomorrow, I believe the Western Conference they start their matches first, and as I mentioned, the winner of the 7-8 matchup is the 7th seed in the Western Conference. So with the Thunder getting the 1 seed and the Denver Nuggets getting the 2 seed, they await their first round matchups. Now, as I mentioned, for Denver, the winner of the Pelicans and Lakers game is going to be playing Denver in the first round of the playoffs, and obviously the Lakers played the Nuggets not too long ago in the playoffs. If and then the loser of that game will play the winner of Sacramento and Golden State. And that team, and in that game, that winner will take on OKC in the first round as the 8th seed. And OKC made NBA history this past weekend, becoming the youngest team in NBA history to clinch a 1 seed. And I believe in just in general, I don't know if it's just Western Conference or Eastern Conference, but I think just in general in NBA history that they were able to do that feat. So great job by the Thunder itself. But let's go into the Pelicans and Lakers matchup and look at how it is. I mean, Anthony Davis playing in the most games he's ever played in his entire career. I think he played in like 75, 76 games this season. LeBron had a really good stretch down the year for the Lakers as well. The Pelicans are going to be getting Brandon Ingram back for this game, which is crucial for them making a run in this playoff. Zion had a great season. CJ McCollum made some good stretches down the line. Even saw some improvements from guys like Herbert Jones and Trey Murphy. The Lakers got Austin Reeves improving as well. So this is a fun matchup. It also tie into the factor that Anthony Davis returns to New Orleans after his lengthy career with the Hornets / Pelicans. But looking into this matchup, Johnson, and I don't know if you want to make a prediction of who we have winning this game and moving on to 7th seed. Who do you think can win this one, or what are you looking forward to in this matchup to see who could become the 7th seed in the West?
Give me the Pelicans here. I'm
Okay.
gonna pick against LeBron. I think they're younger, they're hungrier, and again, nothing against LeBron. I think it's incredible to be doing this late in his career. But hit the 25-7-7 he used to do 15 years ago is a lot more. It was a lot more impressive because of the pace of play and the pace of play, scoring was a lot more difficult back in the day. It was a lot harder game to score in 15 years ago. The NBA has really evolved to its running gun. So averaging 25 points a game because of the pace of play 20 years ago is a lot more impressive than doing it now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get
So
what you're
even
saying.
though he's putting up 25-7-7, the same thing he was doing 17 years ago, I think adjusted for pace numbers, that 25-7-7 he was doing 15 years ago would be probably equivalent to almost like a 32-point triple double nowadays. I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so you have New Orleans
But yeah,
winning
I'm
this
gonna
game and then
give
going
me
to
the
play Denver.
Falcons.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, and listen, it could be the same scenario we had a couple years ago where the Lakers played the Warriors. If that has it to happen, I think that was also for the 8th seed in the Western Conference.
Yes. Win in your end.
Was that last year or was that 2 years ago?
Last year or 2 years ago.
I don't remember. I always forget. There's so much sports going on. Like even with the NFL draft next week, I can barely like I can barely keep a picture of what happened last season in the
Yep,
NBA.
it's getting difficult.
So that could be big box office for the NBA. They get a Lakers potential Lakers and Warriors matchup for the 8th seed. The winner goes into the playoffs, loser goes home. So the NBA I think would be okay with the Pelicans winning this game. Um, they just played not too long ago. I mean, just a couple days ago, right? Uh, who could be the 7th seed in the West and give Denver a problem? I'm gonna I'm gonna go with the Pelicans too. So I feel like because I'm picking that the Lakers are going to win this game. But I think when I look at the Pelicans as a team, they overall um, impressed me more of in types of their bench wise, and they've been in the playoffs before. They were in there last season, obviously. So I think there's no like rust of not being in there, like being a young team and doing that. They have the postseason experience. Maybe it's not enough postseason experience compared to guys like LeBron and AD, who've obviously won a championship with the Lakers, but I'll take New Orleans, and I think they would provide a very nice matchup with Denver in the first round as the 7th seed.
So we're both going New Orleans. That's our
Yeah,
first push.
yeah. So New Orleans is probably screwed. But regardless, then with that, let's say if that is the hypothetical, and the Lakers move down into the 8th seed game, they would take on the winner of the next matchup, which is between Sacramento and Golden State. Now, I do remember this was a matchup last season's playoffs, and Golden State won that matchup in 7 games to move on to the second round. That was a 3-6 matchup last year. This is now a 9-10 game, and for these two teams, obviously, it's winner or go home. If the winner of the game will take on the loser of that Lakers Pelicans game, the winner, the loser will be eliminated from the postseason. It's tough considering where these two teams are. A 46 win year for both of these teams. If they were in the Eastern Conference, obviously we know where they would be in the standings. But regardless of that, we've seen some, Steph Curry doing great things once again. Jonathan Kuminga has taken another step for the Warriors this year. They've obviously added Chris Paul in the offseason. They still have Klay Thompson. And then for Sacramento, they still have guys like Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox that have been good for them. Chris Murray has taken a nice step for them as well this season. Guys like Malik Monk as well. Um, Very well-rounded matchup between these two teams, but who do you ultimately have winning this matchup between Golden State and Sacramento?
This is gonna pay me to save this, but give me Golden State. I think the experience wins here.
Uh, I tend to agree with you. I had the Warriors as a playoff team to begin with to go in the season, so I'm not going to defer from that. I will take Golden State.
Yeah, it pains me to have to pick against the Kings because they were a fun team last year, and
Yeah,
really want to see them keep on improving.
and
But
keep in mind, I think the
can't pick
Warriors.
against them. Can't pick against them.
Right, I think the Warriors are a little bit more well rested. I feel like than compared to the Kings. I know they played their starters in their last game, but I feel like they didn't play them for that long. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know that for a fact that they have Klay Thompson just played his first game back in a couple weeks yesterday. And obviously the postseason matchup experience matters when it comes to the playoffs. So I will agree with you. I think Golden State also gets it done. And our hypothetical matchups then would be um, Golden State versus OKC as the 1-8 matchup, and then Denver versus New Orleans as the 2-7. Oh, I'm sorry. No, let me rephrase that. The 2-7 would be Denver versus New Orleans. And then let's give a hypothetical. Let's say we both have Golden State and LA as the 8th seed matchup. Who do you have winning that matchup?
Give me Golden State.
We'll go with the Lakers, so that'll be our first difference. Okay. So we'll preview our hypothetical matches for that series later on. Let's go down to the Eastern Conference. You have Miami versus Philadelphia. Miami, obviously, having guys like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. Obviously, went to the finals last season, an incredible run from the play-in to the finals. They'll look to do that once again this year. For the Philadelphia 76ers, it's been a tumultuous year where Joel Embiid was out for a very extended period of time, just recently came back. Now he's getting ready for a postseason run. They obviously have Tyrese Maxey, who had a great season for them. And They now, obviously, with the winner of this game, will get the New York Knicks in the first round of the playoffs as the seventh seed. So, who do you have winning this game? Jonathan.
Philadelphia for my mental health because Bam Adebayo keeps on injuring Knicks players, and I can't really stand to see it anymore. And there's going to be these toxic Heat fans say, "Oh well, you know what happens? Everything like no, there's." I've seen multiple players get injured against the Heat. And I've at most of these games. I've seen Kevin Love do it. I've seen Bam do it. I've seen Quentin Grimes, R.J. Barrett, Julius Randle multiple times, Jalen
Yep.
Brunson. I've seen all these guys get magically banged up against the Heat. And I've been to dozens of Knicks games over the last couple of years, and magically it always happens against the Heat. Heat culture is injuring players. That's what it boils down to. Heat culture is just injuring the other team.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pick the Sixers here for my mental health, and also their 31-8 with Joel Embiid. So assuming
Right.
he's healthy for this game, I think that
And
continues.
they didn't play him on Sunday, so you would tend to think he will play in this game and will be fully well rested for this one. I don't disagree. I'm going to go with the Sixers as well. Um, I just I don't know. I feel like this same thing happened with Miami last year, where obviously an easy win and they get the 7th seed, they lose, they have to fall to the 9-10, the 8 seed matchup, and then they barely held on against Chicago to win that game and move on to the playoffs. I see Philadelphia winning this matchup, Miami fall into that 8 seed game, and then the 8 seed game, they would take on the winner of a matchup between Atlanta and Chicago. Obviously, the only two teams in the NBA playoffs with losing records, but for what we've seen from Chicago, maybe they've looked pretty solidly the last couple of weeks, so maybe they have a fighting chance. Trae Young, I think, is returning for the first time in weeks as well for Atlanta, so we know what he's done in the postseason as well. It's not a Tyson matchup, I know for sure, Johnson, to compare it for both of us, but who do you have winning to take on potential matchup with Miami?
Oh boy, oh boy.
You can take Chicago. I'm taking the Bulls.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Chicago
Yeah.
too.
All right. So for the hypothetical Bulls Heat matchup, are we both going with Miami to move on as the
Nope,
eight
I'm
seed?
picking the Bulls because I
You
don't
have
want
the
to see this team.
really
Nope, nope,
okay.
nope, nope, nope. I think Miami's gonna make the playoffs. I think it'd be a shocker if they don't. But for my own mental health and not in the playoffs.
Okay, that's fair. All right. So let's now break down the matchups we have for this NBA
Or
postseason.
actually,
Or
Miami gets the 8th seed and they injure the entire Boston Celtics starting
because there
lineup.
would be a rematch of last year's first round matchup with the Celtics. So
Well, they played in the finals
the
last year, but
finals.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, the ECF finals,
Yeah,
but you know what I
ECF.
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm telling you, the playoff. I'm all
I know
mental
what you
out.
meant. I know what you
I'm
meant.
all I'm all out of sorts with the playoffs. Regardless, let's now preview the matchups, and we'll even include the matchups that we have for the play-in team. So, our hypothetical matchup for this first round series is between a rematch, as you mentioned, of the Eastern Conference Finals, Boston versus Miami. Now, it could be a different team. We don't know yet. But if it were to be Boston and Miami, can Miami pull it off again?
Nope, Boston in 6.
Yeah, I got Boston in 5.
Boston in 6. I'll give him
I am
one more
ready to be
game.
disappointed by Boston losing, but at the same time, it'd also be hilarious if Boston loses. And the reason they would lose is because Joe Mazzulla is their head coach. I have no faith in that dude being a head
Nope.
coach of the team. So
I actually kind of want to have a mid off between Boston and Milwaukee, but that's not possible anymore.
yeah, I just feel like the Heat had all that magic going for them last season, and I can't see that happening 2 years in a row. That would be that would just be really impressive if Miami could do that 2 years in a row, but I just don't see it happening. This could be a biased take. We'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure everyone knows where we're going with this next series. But our hypothetical matchup for the 2-7 matchup in the Eastern Conference, the Knicks versus the 76ers.
Knicks in 6.
Knicks in 6.
Sixers are a tough team, but I think the Knicks get it done on the road. I think what's going to happen is they're going to win games 1 and 2. They're going to lose game 3. Then they're going to win 4. Then they're going to lose at home again, and then they're going to complete it on the road. I think that's the one of the pathways they have.
I will say this is going to be a tough series. Obviously, we know Embiid's going to provide a huge factor. Um, Getting Mitch Robinson back though for the next is crucial for this series, especially if they play Miami or Philadelphia, regardless of who it is. Um, but I agree. I think it's a long series if it's Philadelphia. Even if it's Miami, I think it will be a long series as well. I have the Knicks in 7. for my mental health, that will not be good if it goes to 7 games. But I can very much well see it go to 7 games because Philadelphia is, with Embiid, a really good team. So that's why I have that going as. Now let's go into the matches that we know are set for the Eastern Conference. The 3-6 matchup, Milwaukee versus Indiana. Now this is a tricky series, Johnson, because we don't know the status of Giannis Antetokounmpo for this series yet. These two teams have had a very interesting year playing defense-wise. I expect a very high-scoring matchup between these two. Regardless of that, who do you have winning this matchup?
Bucks in 7. The average score is going to be 135 to 128.
Who? I don't know if Giannis can be ready for the series though.
Regardless, without Giannis,
You think
Dame
even?
should be able to drag this team to the finish line. No disrespect against Indiana, but Tyrese Halliburton has cooled down a tremendous amount. I realize Doc Rivers is the head coach, so that's like having
That's why I'm concerned.
an
Also,
inside agent, pretty much in your favor.
yeah,
But I think
I'm
Dame.
really concerned
I've
about
seen
that.
Dame carry worse rosters, so give me
Keep in
Milwaukee.
mind, Indiana was 4-1 this season against the Bucks as well. So
That doesn't mean anything.
it might not mean anything, but with Doc Rivers the head coach, that could mean something. I'm going with the Pacers in 6. I've pretty much run out of faith in Milwaukee too. And they've shown me no signs of being that team that we saw a couple years ago win an NBA championship. They can't play defense. Giannis not playing is not going to help them whatsoever. Even if they have Dame, I don't think it will matter. I think Indiana, they're a nice young up and coming team. They got Pascal Siakam, who is a former NBA champion. He knows what it takes to get past some of these teams as well. Miles Turner is still a really nice player. And you mentioned Tyrese Halliburton had a great season for the Pacers. I think they just will be too much for Milwaukee, especially if they don't have Giannis in the series. So I'll take the Pacers for the upset. And then for the final matchup, we have the 4-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the 5-seeded Orlando Magic. As you mentioned, the Magic had a very, very surprising season, getting that 5 seed. Pablo Banchero, monster year for Orlando as well. For Cleveland, you have guys like we saw last season in the first round for the Knicks when they played them. Mobley, Mitchell, Jared Allen, guys like that, Darius Garland. A lot of injuries have been dealt with the Cavaliers this season. But they still have a good roster on paper. But it's going to be an interesting match between these two teams because you don't know what Orlando will give you, considering they don't really have much playoff experience when you look at their rosters. So will that affect them in this series with Cleveland, or can they pull off what maybe some people would consider to be an upset and move on to the second round?
Give me Orlando in 5 here, and you're gonna kind of like
5,
go,
really?
yeah, you can go well. What did Cleveland do for the last game of the season?
They tanked.
But
I'm
specifically, what did they do?
I'm convinced they tanked their matchup with Charlotte so they get
Not
an easier
only
matchup.
did they sit Garland and Mitchell, they also completely blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter.
They
That is
did.
loser mentality. You are a loser organization if you do that against the worst team in the league on purpose. So with that loser mentality, give me Orlando because they're hungrier.
I would just love
They're
a
not in the right headspace. If they're that scared of dodging Indiana, God's going to give him a great matchup in Orlando.
I would just love to see Orlando win the series because I'm a huge I'm a fan of the Magic just because of their TikTok page because of the song they have anytime they win a game. That's the only reason I would love Orlando to win.
Listen, and they have great young talent there.
Yeah,
Paolo
they're a team you can
Banchero,
root. You can root.
fantastic. Franz Wagner, one of the I would say the craftiest forwards in the league.
Yeah,
Franz Wagner you could be watching a game for 35, 40 minutes, and then you realize, oh man, this guy's 28 points. Like it happens. Like he averages 20 a game. So if he goes for 25, 26, 27, 28 points, you're not even surprised. You'd be pretty surprised, but just the way he plays, it's so effortlessly. It's not like he's hogging the ball. It's not like he's some of these other players. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, Michael Porter Jr., good luck passing the ball. Like that he's going for that. No, like listen, he plays great defense. Uh with Paolo, they have a great 1-2. Cole Anthony is one of the premier guards coming. I think he's off the bench, right?
I think he's off the bench too. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
he
great.
has not started one game this year.
Yeah, that is a he's a great six man,
Jalen
and
Suggs showed improvement this year. He has
yeah,
a shooting guard.
and that's really all you could ask for.
And I feel like Markel Fultz is a nice facilitator at point guard. I mean, if he starts or not, I mean, no matter who it is, they're still getting. They have a lot of good guard play. We knew that going into the season with this team as well. Um, this is tough because last year the Cavs struggled playing on the road, and we saw that really much when they played the Knicks. They could not play on the road. They got wiped out by the MSG environment, and that really what did them in that series. And they just got physically manhandled. If you think about it, they couldn't get rebounds. They were giving up easy layups and transition plays. They just nothing was going right, and they couldn't make shots. A lot of things going wrong for Cleveland in that series against the Knicks last season. You look at this team, and you mentioned it. They have a lot of good defensive players. I mean, if healthy, Jonathan Isaac's still a really good, solid defensive player, but I mean that's not really saying a lot for Jonathan Isaac because he hasn't been able to stay healthy enough. But neither, as I say, Wendell Carter is a nice shot blocker, for this team as well. They have Mo Wagner too at center. This will not be an easy matchup for Cleveland, I think, at the end of the day, but I will unfortunately go with the Cavs in 6 to win. And I'm only doing it because I don't want to mush the Magic completely. I'd rather them
That's
win.
fine.
I think for the mushing hour purposes, I'm going to pick Cleveland to win the series just so that Orlando can actually win because I want to see the Magic move on instead. So that's our Eastern Conference preview. Now let's go into the Western Conference. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think you had um, Golden State as the 8th seed against OKC.
Yep.
Okay, so if that is the matchup, I obviously have a different matchup. I'll make my pick in a second. If it's OKC and Golden State in the first round, who do you have winning that matchup?
OKC in 6. I think they come. I think Gold State comes firing out. They take the first game on the road, then they're gonna lose 3 in a row. Kind of battle their way back. Uh, Eventually, Golden State picks off another one, and then they lose at home in front of the Bay Area fans in 6. So give me OKC in 6.
And in my hypothetical, I had OKC playing the Lakers. I really want to be that person and say, screw it, give me LA. But I don't know if I can. I think OKC, yes, doesn't have the playoff experience as much, but I think when you look
They're
at
old. Like Klay Thompson's old, Chris Paul's
well,
old,
for your
Draymond is
scenario,
old.
yeah, for your scenario,
Yeah, I mean you could say the same thing about the Lakers
you
too.
could say the same
Outside
thing
of
about the Lakers. That's true.
they're old.
I think what it comes down to is you look at the bench for the Thunder too. I think they have one of the most well-rounded benches we have in the league right now, and I think when you look at the playoffs, that's really what comes down to winning a series is those bench minutes when the stars come off. Can the bench keep that mentality going for the rest of the game and make sure you win the game? And I feel like OKC has that mentality to keep games going and move on. So I will also go with OKC if they play the Lakers, but I will have them in 7. I think the Lakers will give them a tough time if that is the matchup. Um, but I still think the Thunder get it done, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lost the series, even if it's Golden State or the Lakers. I think those teams can certainly give them a run for their money. But I think if SGA wants to prove that he's one of these top players in the game, he has to win this series, especially on the biggest stage in all of the world. So I'll go with OKC in 7 in a hypothetical matchup if they
Remember,
play the
Darvin
Lakers.
Ham is also the head coach of the Lakers, so they have that going against them too.
That's true. That's why I'm not as sold on the Lakers, but I still have them making it to 7 games. We'll see. Now, for our second game, we have the Nuggets and our hypothetical matchup playing the Pelicans. We both agreed on New Orleans being the 7th seed. So, if that is indeed the matchup, Johnson, who do we have winning that one?
Give me the Nuggets in 5. Nothing against OKC. Jeez, nothing against New Orleans here. Excuse me. But Denver is a proven championship caliber team. They somehow got better in the offseason. Jokic looks even better than he was last season. I would say he's definitely the top player in the history of that franchise. He's surpassed Dan Issel. He's surpassed Alex English and Melo. So he's become the all-time greatest player there, and he's still in the prime of his career, which is crazy.
And he has a
And
chance to win another MVP this year.
yeah, so pretty much he has Jamal Murray, which is a proven closer. He has a great 3-and-D player, Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon does all the dirty work, and Reggie Jackson's kind of having a career resurgence, kind of, sort of, not really. Christian Brown, great player off the bench, and always reliable KCP there.
Yeah.
Give me Denver in 5. Give me the gentleman right here.
It is sad that I think I'm gonna go with the same thing. I think I'm going with the Nuggets at 5 too. I I think it comes down to, for me, can New Orleans really match up with Denver in a way where they'll make it accessible and make this a series? Maybe, but at the same time, I'm concerned is that can they really contend with a guy like Jokic in the playoffs? I just don't know if they have enough mentality to do so. Valanciunas is a nice center for them, but
Nobody's stopping. You have to just hope
you
that you
can't.
could slow him down.
Yeah, the whole mentality is you have to try to stop this team and slow them down, as you mentioned, and
And I think Jokic has some extra motivation because he's seen Vic Wembanyama now.
yeah,
If he wants to be the greatest European center of all time, he has to start stacking his hardware now. Because what you could say, make the argument that this is going to be the worst version of Victor Wembanyama over the last 10 years, over the next 10 years, barring injury. If this is him at his worst, then I think Jokic is going to have some real competition next year.
yeah, yeah. I think New Orleans has the capability of making this a series, but I just think Denver. We know that they have the experience already. They obviously won the championship last year. I just think that when it comes down to it, I think the Nuggets just are tough to beat. I mean, obviously, whoever they play in the second round, I think will be a longer matchup because when we go into this matchup just a second, these two teams would certainly give them, I think, a really good competitive matchup. And with that being said, the matchup that potentially could play Denver in the second round would be between Minnesota and Phoenix. Timberwolves had a very good resurgent year, 56 wins, third seed in the West. They had a chance at the one seed going into Sunday, but they ended up losing their game to this Phoenix Suns team. So now these two teams will meet once again. The Suns obviously had a whole new, changing of the guard this season. Obviously getting Bradley Beal, they still have Devin Booker, they have Kevin Durant still. A very different team than we saw from last season's team. Obviously, no Chris Paul and no DeAndre Ayton, but a 49-win year, and they just get into the playoffs before avoiding that play-in tournament. So now, looking at this matchup between these two teams, who do you think comes out on top in the 3-6 matchup?
Give me Phoenix in 7 here.
Okay.
I know. I realize Devin Booker has put up 0 baskets in a game this season before, which is pretty embarrassing. I realize that KD has his issues in the playoffs where he's been a major choker when he's had to be a leader. Bradley Beal really has no postseason experience, but this team is built in a way that they cannot have a first round exit. If this is a first round exit, this would be one of the more colossal
Well, look.
playoff failures that you've ever seen. So
Well, look what
I think the
they
pressure is
got rid
really
of.
on them.
They got rid of Aiden. They got rid of Monty. They got rid of Chris Paul. So some of the demons are gone, right?
Yeah, some of the demons are gone, but Phoenix has to win a playoff series because if not, the team that won the offseason is going to be going to Cancun in the middle of April. So that'd be pretty embarrassing. So give me
And
Phoenix in 7.
and listen, they're playing a really good team in Minnesota, as I mentioned. Anthony Edwards had a really monster
Yeah,
year.
no.
Near
Minnesota
26
is a great
points a
team.
game. Yeah. Carl Anthony Towns just recently returned from injury. That's a huge get for them. Gobert had a nice defensive year. Naz Reid has showed improvement. And they have veterans like Mike Conley and Jaden McDaniels, Kyle Anderson off the bench. They
That's
have
weird
a.
calling Jaden McDaniels a veteran. Can you stop doing that?
No, I'm doing it. Screw you.
That's not. No, that
It
feels
does.
illegal.
I know it does. He's been in the league how many years now? He's
Been in the league
been.
like 4 years now.
Yeah, that's a vet.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like that.
Yeah, yeah. Time's really flown since 2020. I've been trying to tell people that. I think everyone knows that, regardless. I will go with the Suns in 6. I think they get it done in their home court. So I have both 6 seeds winning in the first round of the playoffs. I think it's very possible, considering, and it has nothing really to do with Minnesota. I think they had a great story this season. I'm gonna probably regret this because I bit on the train last year with Phoenix, and they ultimately ended up disappointing me like they did last season. But I think it's if any team's going to be able to stop them defensively, it is this Minnesota team. But I just feel like it's going to be too much when you have guys like Booker and KD and Bradley Beal now. Nurkic is a solid center, like a good enough center that can, if they put him on Karl Anthony Towns or even on a Gobert, that he'll be able to get some big rebounds for them down inside the paint. I think this is. I think I agree with what you said. The time is now for Phoenix to get this done and get a first round playoff win and move on, because If not, then the whole experiment's going to be obviously once again go terribly. They just paid Grayson Allen this as of today, so they're already in cap hell as it is, and they can't get they have to get it done sooner rather than later because
Want
it's
to hear something
or else
crazy
it's
though?
not going to be able to work. But go ahead.
And Bradley Beal was formerly a 30-point per game scorer, right?
He averaged what 18 this year.
Yeah, he's pretty much a less effective RJ Barrett right now.
Well, yeah, and he was
30
inactive
point per
for
game scorer
yeah. Well, again,
a couple of years ago.
remember what team he was on. Keep that in mind.
Yep.
Keep that in mind. Then the last matchup we have for the first round is an interesting matchup between these two teams, 250-win teams between LA, the Clippers, and the Dallas Mavericks. This might be the toughest matchup, Johns, I think we have to predict who will win. I think I know where you're going with it,
You
but
think?
I unless you might swerve me, I really think I know how much you like the Clippers, but are you going to take Dallas?
Oh man, I guess you do know. I'm going Clippers in 7 here.
Yeah, I know you're a Clippers fan. I know you're a big Kawhi Leonard fan. You're a
I'm a
big Kawhi Leonard
yeah.
fan. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know you like Kawhi a lot.
I like the grit of LA. But it's going to be tough because both these teams definitely deserve to be in the second round.
Yeah, not yeah. These teams, one of these two do not deserve to go home after the first round.
And would you believe it if I told you that Paul George, James Harden, and Kawhi Leonard, the three of them averaged about 70 games played this year? The
I
three
would
of
never
them?
believe that. No.
Yeah, Kawhi Leonard with 68. What a bum. But Paul George and James Harden with 74 and 72.
Yeah,
So in a year, and Westbrook with 68 too. And he's been coming off the bench, and that he has finally found the perfect role for him. That he can just come off the bench, run the offense for 20 minutes, and then to go back. And James Harden realizing, you know what, I don't have to score. I'm just going to pass the ball a dozen times a night, rebound, actually try a little bit on defense. And when he's not trying, he's going to get masked by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Tough center, down low and Zubac, which is pretty good defensively. So it's this team's a lot tougher than people realize. It's going to be a battle between them and Dallas. I realize they have Kyrie Irving and Luka, one of the best players in the league.
yeah, well, yeah.
But I can let you kind of go into your pick here before I take too much time.
This is tough. This probably, as I mentioned, it's gonna be the toughest one because Luca had another great an MVP year, near 34 points a game, near double double, near triple double, pretty much average wise for his averages on the season. Kyrie Irving, he's one of the better guards in all of the league. And they still have some really solid role players, guys like Tim Hardaway. They added PJ Washington at the trade deadline. Daniel Gafford they added as well. They got Derek Lively in the draft. They did a really good job because remember last year what the issue was for Dallas is they couldn't play defense. And they have fixed that problem this season for the most part. And they've gotten guys that are gritty, can get you some big time rebounds, can facilitate the ball to guys like Luka and Kyrie. And if they can't get the ball, then you have guys like Tim Hardaway on the outside shooting a 3-pointer to get you some much needed points. I don't know where to go. I've been back and forth between this series between these two teams. I feel like the only reason I'd be concerned with the Clippers is their health. And I feel that's always been the Clippers, cause for concern is, Kawhi Leonard's had his injuries past. We know what Paul George has done in recent memory with the playoffs. I think adding James Harden is obviously a better scenario for them because it adds, a triple threat of Dallas having to guard these three. I'm going to go with Dallas in 6.
So now that you have that those thoughts out of the way, let's say you shut down Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right? Let's say you shut down the two leading scorers, right?
Yeah.
Would you trust Westbrook and Harden to bring you to the promised land?
If it was a couple years ago, maybe. I still think I could trust them now, but
All right.
yeah,
So on the flip side, Luka and Kyrie get shut down, right? Same two top
I
players
know.
get shut down.
Then
Do you
you
trust
trust Tim
PJ
Hart.
Washington and Tim Hardaway Jr.?
I know.
That is why. So I'm saying if either of these guys kind of choke in the playoffs, you're gonna be relying on Tim Hardaway Jr. and PJ Washington rather
I
than
know.
James Harden and Westbrook. I think I'd rather put my eggs in that basket.
I'm going to go based off of Lucas had this dominant year, and as long as he stays healthy, I feel like he could easily be a scenario where he could just get them past LA by himself. and then you have Kyrie. And I get it. I know they don't have that third option where you say, yes, even if they get shut down, you have this guy. It's really Tim Hardaway after those two. I
I've seen the Tim Hardaway experience
I
before.
know. We both have. I'm again, this is maybe just a bias pick for me. I'm basing this off of I've done the same song and dance with the Clippers, and I know I just said this with the Suns, and I still picked them to win their series. But I've done the same song and dance with the Clippers, and I feel like I don't know what I'm going to get out of them. It's tough with the two coaches. It's Tyronn Lue versus Jason Kidd. I don't know who would get it done. I mean, obviously, Tyronn Lue has the experience of winning a championship before, but I still think I don't know. There's just something in my gut telling me Dallas is going to win the series. I don't know what it is. It might just be my recent love for Luca. He helped me win a fantasy basketball championship.
True, true.
The last team in, I was somehow the champion. That's
Usually how it goes.
yeah, it's usually how it goes. So that's our recap now, or our mushing hour for the first round of the NBA playoffs. Now let's go into who we think will make the NBA finals. And
Yeah,
obviously,
so
we'll
we
be
have East winners and we have West winners now.
yes, and obviously we know Johnson. We'll be recapping every round of the postseason this year for the NBA, and recapping and previewing the next round of the playoffs. But for our pre-predictions for how this NBA playoffs would go, who do you think comes out of the East? And I'm, I would not
Has
be.
to be Boston, right?
Yeah,
I would
you
be
think it's
amiss not to piss Boston, not to pick Boston.
you would be remiss not to pick them. Okay. Yeah, they are. I mean, on paper, right? I mean, they added Kristaps and Drew Holiday in the offseason. I mean, you would think this has got to be the year they get to the finals. And I picked Boston too to make the finals in the
It
beginning of the
has to
season.
be Boston. They have the best team, best metrics in the East in 50 years. It has to be them.
Who do you have
And if
them?
it's
Go ahead, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Let's see
and if it's
before.
not them, then something definitely went wrong, and they shouldn't have ever fired Ime Udoka, who, by the way, almost led Houston to the playoffs.
I know Houston's
41
going to be in the
wins.
playoffs next year.
Yeah, they're a team to
I
look out for.
guarantee it.
They're this year's Thunder. Does that make sense? Or last year's
I
Thunder?
could see it. Yeah, yeah, 100%. They
They
would have
got
made the
the
playoffs if they were in the East.
yeah, no, they
They
would
made the
have.
play at least.
Yeah.
Um. Uh. Who do you have them beating in the East finals?
I didn't get that far. Hopefully, I mean, not
Obviously, you
hopefully
want
the
the Knicks,
Knicks.
but
Not,
yeah,
not. I'm not. I'm just gonna say Boston right now. I'm not gonna. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna jinx anything else. I'm just gonna say Boston.
I'm gonna go with Boston too. Just so we can mush them, and then something good in our favor happens. How about that?
Yep. There we go.
Yeah. Obviously, we obviously both want the Knicks to win.
But I'm not gonna
Um,
say that.
it's wishful thinking. It's very wishful thinking. All I'm saying is the last time the Knicks and the Rangers won 50 games in the same season was 1994, and we got one
Both
team to
made
win
the
a
finals.
championship, and both made the finals, right? And one team won a championship, and one was very close to a championship. That's all I'm gonna say. Hopefully, history will repeat itself, but this time maybe it gets rewritten with both teams win the championship. That's all I'll go with that. I will go with Boston in the East. If I had to pick a team to play them in the conference finals, I'm going to say if it's not the Knicks, I will go with the Sixers. I think no matter, I'm going to say now, I think if whoever wins the Sixers and Knicks series, Johnson will play Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals regardless.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
I know maybe you'll think Milwaukee. I'm not.
No, I'm not sold on
You're not
them.
sold on them anymore. Yeah, I
Nope.
don't blame it. It's Doc Rivers. That's yeah. Okay, that's fair. Now, how about the Western Conference? This might be a little bit more trickier to pick that one.
Denver. Boring answer. Boring answer. But like I said, Jokic wants to kind of light a fire under himself. He's gonna have Victor Wembanyama kind of on his tail now, and if Vic is even a little bit better than he was last year, he's going to be an all-star for the next 15 years of his career, which will do a great dent into the legacy of which Jokic has been building the last couple of years. So Denver, because he wants to light a fire under his ass, maybe win a title or two before Wembanyama becomes inevitable.
Okay. Well, at the beginning of the season, I had Boston and Golden State. And I mean, maybe it could still happen, but again, I also didn't pick Golden State to win their playoff matchup, or even at the play-in, make it out of the play-in. Uh, my two choices are down to Denver, and I've thought about maybe. I would say the Suns, but I did that last year and it did not work out. They got eliminated immediately. I feel like I need something different than what you did. I think I have to go with something different.
You don't have to.
I don't have to, but I should. I don't think anyone wants to hear us picking the same teams for the finals too.
That's fun.
Yes, because then we mush them. I mm, I'll go with Denver. I'm not happy about it. I was gonna maybe redirect and go OKC, but if I have them playing Dallas or even the Clippers, I feel like the winner of Clippers and Mavericks beats them in the second round. Maybe OKC makes the run that no one expects. I just don't think they're there yet to make that type of a run. But Denver has the experience from last year. I feel like they should get back there this season. So
So
if the finals are Boston and Denver, who do you have win the title?
it's Denver. I mean, like I've kind of said for reasons beforehand, one of the best built rosters with a top five head coach, with kind of a superstar, which was he was more focused on horse racing 6 months ago than he was basketball. I believe seeing that those 17 points by Big Vic will kind of light a fire under him and will him to another NBA title. He needs to start stat padding now before Victor Wembanyama starts taking his All NBA first teams by 2026.
Who I don't. I'm trying to think. Did I pick Boston to win the title to be in the season?
I think he did.
I think I did. Do I just stick with my pick? Just take Boston again?
I think I picked Denver beginning of the year. So
I'm looking at it right now. You had Suns and Bucks, and you had Suns win the title.
well, you see how both those teams turned out. So
I had Golden State and
Suns still have a
Boston.
chance actually, but
The Suns do have a chance. I thought about the Suns. I really did, but I think I did that last year with the Suns and Celtics, and then obviously that's why I mentioned it. Went complete haywire. I didn't want to do that for a second straight year. I had Warriors and Celtics. I had the Celtics win the title, so I'll just go with Boston. They were my preseason favorite. We're again. Hopefully, this is a mush, and maybe Boston doesn't win because I would not want to see a Boston team win a championship, regardless if they are a basketball team or a football team. It's mostly, I just don't want to see them win. I just can't see it happen. But in this hypothetical scenario, I think they get it done. I think adding Kristaps and Drew Holiday was a huge get for them in the offseason. The only reason, as I mentioned, they wouldn't be able to win the title is because of their head coach. That would be the only reason.
makes
So
sense to me.
I don't know. We'll have to see. But regardless, Johnson, any final thoughts? Any news regarding our us for this week, as well as what we're expecting for the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, go New York Knicks, and we're going to be at a card show this week. It's going to actually be in our hometown of Staten Island, so that is great for us.
Uh,
It is fairies, kicks, and cards. It is going to be at the Holy Child Gym this Saturday, April 20th. That is 4747 Amboy Road. The entrance is on May Place, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Staten Island's only sneaker card show.
it's tough. So you're officially not going to game one?
We don't have the time for game one yet, but tentatively, that's where we will
Yeah.
be.
Oh, I gotta think if I'm gonna be there. If I am there, I do apologize. I most likely will be watching the next game while it's going on. I know you probably will be watching along with me, but
Yep.
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully there isn't, maybe hopefully for our sake, I doubt it's gonna happen, but for our sake, maybe the scheduling is great that maybe we can attend it. Who knows? But yeah, I agree with you. Go Knicks. Hopefully things work out. Obviously, a great run last year. Maybe a better run this year. Who knows? Can only hold out hope. That's why we didn't mush them today. That was the whole purpose of that. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. As we mentioned, the NBA playoffs are now set. We now have the format for this year's NBA postseason, and we'll see how it all unfolds. Hopefully for our Knicks, they make a great run, and maybe they can surprise us all with a championship at the end. We won't mush it and say that will happen because we didn't write that in stone. But I will say what we can write in stone is next week on the show, our most anticipated episode we have all year, Johnson. It is the All Gas No Break Sports Show mock draft for this season's NFL draft. Sean Mulligan will be joining us on the show once again to conduct our second ever mock draft on the show. We'll see how many picks we get right this year. We didn't have a lot right last season, so we'll see how we do this year overall. But it should be a fun one next week. Make sure you tune in for that show. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson, this is this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.